All right. Hello, everyone. Hi. Hello. Thank you so much for coming. I'm very excited. After 3 long years, here we are with the Insight Lectures in person again. Woo. And thank you so much, Mary, our ASN interpreter who is on site. I would like to start tonight by acknowledging that the Walker Arts Center and the Sculptures Garden are located in the traditional and contemporary homelands of Dakota people. This site, which was once an expanse marshland and meadow, holds meaning for Dakota, Ojibwe, and indigenous people from other native lands who still live here in the community. The name of our state, Minnesota Makoke, or Minnesota, means where the waters meet the clouds. I find this really beautiful and meaningful as we continue to reflect on ourselves, on our legacy, and on the world we live in today. For more than 35 years, AIGA Minnesota collaborated with the Walker Arts Center to bring leading designers to Twin Cities. I want to thank them for being a great partner. And also I would like to thank Shapko, who donated the printing of our beautifully designed posters this year. And, you know, Inside series had a huge influence on me. I have watched many legendary designers on this stage, and this series is probably, partially why I'm here working with the Walker Arts Center today. Talking about the legendary ones, I also want to send a big shout out to the previous hosts of this program, Andrew Bowelt, who did it for 15 years, and Emmett Byrne, who hosted the program for 7 years with AIGA Minnesota. So I'm going to invite Emily from AIGA Minnesota to stage, and then our new design director, Mark Owens, will join us. And then, if we have time, tonight's speaker, Prem, will come and do his talk. Okay, we'll keep it short. Thank you so much, Prem. I'm so excited to have you here. And after the talk, we'll have a little chit-chat in the lobby. I hope you all join us. Enjoy.
Hello and welcome everyone here tonight. It is a joy and privilege to be here with you all to embark on Insight's 2023 Design Lecture Series. I am very thrilled. My name is Emily and I am the Director of Communications for AIGA Minnesota. As far as AIGA Minnesota goes, we are thrilled to be hosting Portfolio One-on-One this year, both in person and virtually. And we are always looking for more volunteers and to have open board seats. So if you'd like to get involved with your local design community, you can look for more information on our website. I would especially like to thank, on behalf of AIGA Minnesota, Asli, thank you for your wonderful introduction. Mark, Jake, Laura, I don't know where you all are, but the whole Walker team, really thank you. This partnership is very important to us, and for nearly 4 decades, the Walker and AIGA Minnesota has worked to bring together such amazing voices to the Twin Cities, celebrating the adventurous design thinkers and makers of the world. Anyways, finally, I'll introduce Mark. I am delighted to welcome you here too, Mark. If you'd like to go on here. Thank you.
Hey, everyone. Thank you for coming tonight. I'm Mark Owens. I'm the new design director at the Walker Arts Center. It's a big deal for me to be on this stage, and I'm really just so pleased that all of you can be here in person with us. Of course, AIGA Minnesota. Like Asli, I've seen so many of these lectures online, and having joined the Walker relatively recently, it's a very big deal to be here and to share this evening with all of you. I also want to thank, in addition to Asli, our whole design department at the Walker, Kate, Arlie, Ian Babineau, Andrew Bogard, Cam Herndon, Brian Huddleston, Pamela Johnson, and Jake Usina. Everyone really pitched in this year. We're back in person. We all were really wanted to make it sort of a moment where we could really welcome all of you back to the Walker. So I really thank my whole team. I also want to encourage all of you to check out the amazing lineup. This season, we have a really great series of speakers on March 14th next week. Every Tuesday, you've got to block it out. We Should Do It All, amazing studio out of New York, is going to be here. Seraph Ozkan from Nike is going to be here on March 21st. Angela Washko, who's at Carnegie Mellon, who does sort of feminist media critique, is going to be here on March 28th. That's going to be really super exciting. And Extreme Noise Records is on April 4th, which is like a local, long-running punk collective. So, it's maybe not your typical run of design luminaries, but I think you're getting a sense that we're trying to expand and open up the parameters of what Insights can do. So I really just encourage all of you to pay attention. We also have an incredible lineup of online workshops that, it's really expansive this year. Insights has traditionally been a beloved in-house project for the design studio at the Walker Art Center. And this year, we're marking our return to in-person lectures by taking a pause and being a bit more reflective. All of the typefaces you've been seeing on the monitor here and on the Insights poster, grab one if you don't have one, it's right here. And on the ads are drawn from an archive of Walker exhibition identities that goes back to the 1970s. Brian had been pulling together this archive as like a pet project, and we thought it was really appropriate to incorporate it into the identity for Insights, both as a way of acknowledging the legacy of the design studio at the Walker, which Asley's talked about, but also as a way of kind of marking a break. We're coming back in person. That's a certain kind of break, but I think you're also going to see we're going to try to do things a little bit differently this year and going forward. So that it's a bit of a reflexive moment. As Asley mentioned, for this installment of Insights, we're kind of investigating this Venn diagram of overlapping concerns: institutional identity, personal identity, collective identity. And I can think of no better speaker to sort of open up that discussion than Prem Krishnamurthy. Prem is actually a return speaker to Insights. He was here 15 years ago in 2008 as a member of the studio projects. And that was part of a series that was appropriately themed Reinventions, which I think is really appropriate because in a way, the designer that I'm about to reintroduce is very different than the designer that was on the stage in 2008. In the intervening 15 years, Prem has founded P, a gallery in New York's Chinatown. He's won a Cooper Hewitt National Design Award 2015, helped create identities for museums such as the 57th Carnegie International and Kunstinstituut Melle in Rotterdam, which was renamed in 2020. He's also curated numerous exhibitions, including the FICRA Graphic Design Biennial, Ministry of Graphic Design in Sharjah in 2018, and most recently served as the co-artistic director of the Front International Cleveland Triennial for Contemporary Art in 2022. He is also the author of the experimental book PDF from 2019, which some of you may know, and then very recently of a new book of essays called On Letters from 2022. Oh yes, and I almost forgot, he also runs workshops, like an interdisciplinary design studio. So tonight, Prem brings his Department of Transformation to the Walker, which is an itinerant workshop that practices collaborative tools for social change. So before I bring him to the stage, I just want to add a personal note. Prem and I have known each other for 25 years. We first met as design students. We started our career together in New York. So in my first sort of public-facing event as design director for the Walker, it's just very meaningful to have a familiar face to hear on the stage. So please join me in welcoming Prem Krishnamurthy.
Okay. Thank you, Mark, for that warm introduction. It is also wonderful to be back here with so many friendly faces. Thank you, Asla, as well, somebody else whom I've known, I think, for 10, 15 years. And thank you to the AIGA. I also want to give a quick shout out to Kate Arford, Jake Usna, and the entire team who has helped support this, Ryan, Justin, and others, and Mary Cerruti. I'm very happy that I can show up in Minnesota to such warm friends and people I've known for a while. So let's start this guy out. So let me get up my notes, as is the way that people do things. I have notes on a Google Doc on my phone. Anybody here use Google Docs for notes when you do things? Yeah, there you go. They're not even paying me anything for this sponsorship. Well, just to start out, I mean, for better or for worse, as Mark said, I guess the last time I spoke here it was in a series about reinventions, and for better or for worse, I have a tendency not to do the same thing twice, and so I'm going to try, as usual, to do something a little different with the format of this talk, to test out some new ideas, see how they land with you all, and then learn from that and take it into whatever comes next. Every presentation is a rehearsal for the next presentation. So, but what's really been, on my mind for a while now is the question of how art and design can be transformative in the world, how they can be transformative at the individual, collective, and structural level. And so I'm going to try to explore that a little bit with you all today. As Mark mentioned, this talk here is part of something I call Department of Transformation. And Department of Transformation is an artist-organized group that thinks about strategies and practices strategies for transformation at multiple levels. It's pretty new, but we just have a new website that was designed by Mensch Maschine Studio in Hamburg, and it's at dept-of-transformation.org. If you check it out, you'll also see that you can play a little bit with other people who are on the site. You can move things around and check out both some of the people involved in this project and some of the references and resources and readings that inform the thinking. So we also have, for the very first time in my life at least, I have some merch, and so I'll just proudly. I've never had a band or a tour t-shirt before because I've never yet been on a 10-city tour in the US to try and teach transformation and collaboration within art and design context. So let's see how it goes. Now, I'm going to start with kind of unfolding some of the framework of this, and I call this Talk 2, 3 Strategies, because there's a little bit of backstory. I'm going to leave that for another time and just point out this talk is itself a talk of talks. So I'm going to try here to go through some top-level ideas and strategies that I've been thinking about for how design and art can be transformative. I'm also going to point to many other references to other things that I've put into the world and other people have put into the world. At the end of this talk, there will be a QR code and a link to download all the slides for this talk. So if you want to go back and get any information, you can. So I'm just pointing that out. You'll see a lot of QR codes. That seems to be the method I have in 2023 to reach internet pages. Whoever is watching this in 2046, you probably have other ways to do that, but I don't have access to them yet. So let me start with, Let me start with a diagram, a redrawing of a diagram that some of you may know. Is this on? Hello? Okay, cool. I want to point out I've never really used a laser pointer, so I'm really just trying new things. This is a diagram. This is a redrawing of a diagram by Charles and Ray Eames from 1969. And the diagram was called What is Design? So over the last several years, I've been redrawing this diagram a bit and updating some of the terms, but I think that it still has relevance for many kinds of creative practice. I'll just read out loud these points and try to use my laser pointer. So, 1. So you have well, first of all, you have this whole Venn diagram of many different things, and it says 1, if this area represents the interest and concern of the artist or maker. 2, and this the area of genuine interest to the community or commissioner. 3, and this the concerns of the planet as a whole. Then 4, it is in this area of overlapping interest and concern that the artist or maker can work with conviction and enthusiasm. I also love this note. These areas are not static. They grow and develop as each one influences the others. So some of you may also be familiar with the film The Powers of 10, also by Charles and Ray Eames, that looks at scale, the way in which when you zoom in on the universe, it has a resemblance to what happens when you zoom out. And one of the thinkers who's been extremely influential to my way of moving through the world over the last years is Adrienne Maree Brown, who is an organizer, author, doula, and more. And her book, Emergent Strategy, uses many examples from the natural world, from fungi to other plants and other kinds of communities, bees, swarms, and other groupings of creatures, to think about how small actions at the small scale, when they build up together, can have large effects. She calls this emergent strategy. And I'll just read this line. In the framework of emergence, the whole is a mirror of the parts. Existence is fractal. The health of the cell is the health of the species and the planet. This really informs my thinking about how art and design can be transformative at the individual, collective, and structural scales. I'm not here today to talk about that so much, so if you're interested, there are more resources and references if you want some of that thinking. What I'm here today to do is to try to go a little deeper into specific strategies that I've identified through personal experience that I think can make for more meaningful, more transformative design and artwork. So the method of this talk is going to be to share some of these ideas and share some small examples from things I've been involved in that hopefully illustrate this. But also, the goal of this whole talk, in many ways, is to involve all of you, to see how this resonates with you and what these ideas might do in the world. So in that spirit, I've never been one who believes in kind of TED Talk style lectures. So I'm going to jump back and forth. I'm going to go between different documents. I'm going to try to keep it a little loose and hopefully also porous to what you all think. So here's something that's 100 years old, Viktor Shklovsky's Art as Device. And Shklovsky, who was a Russian thinker, theorist, he coined the term estrangement, or the idea that art can do something that defamiliarizes the operations of everyday life, and through that make something that's unusual. And he says here, art is a means of experiencing the process of creativity. The artifact itself is quite unimportant. Last year, one of the most important books I read was David Abrams's The Spell of the Sensuous. David Abrams is an environmental philosopher. This book was written over 25 years ago, but I think it's extremely relevant in terms of thinking about our own relationship to the more than human world. But he offers also a kind of footnote about art that I find really interesting. Genuine art, we might say, is simply human creation that does not stifle the non-human element, but rather allows whatever is other in the materials to continue to live and breathe. Thus understood, art is really a cooperative endeavor, a work of co-creation in which the dynamism and power of earthborn materials is honored and respected. This turn to natural metaphors and thinking about the human and the more than human worlds is also, for me, very important and useful when thinking about how art and design function. Vandana Shiva, who is an important Indian biodiversity activist, wrote in the early 1990s the book Monocultures of the Mind. And she has two principles that underlie sustainable systems. And she says the two principles on which the production and maintenance of life is based are A, the principle of diversity, and B, the principle of symbiosis and reciprocity, often called the law of return. So these principles together, for me, are very meaningful, and they can inform, I think, how we work as designers, as artists, as other people creatively making things in the world. I have my own terms for these. I call them bumpiness, generosity, and juxtaposition. These are terms that come out of my own practice. I'm sure you could replace them with other terms, find other ways to express them, but I'm going to try to go through these three terms briefly and illustrate, or at least share, my hunch that things that hit all three of these different characteristics or strategies can become quite interesting. If you're interested to read more about these and to hear what my thinking behind these ideas of bumpiness, generosity, and juxtaposition are, you can take a look at this, which is a talk I originally gave for the AIGA conference in 2021. Yeah, it's like every presentation is a rehearsal for the next presentation. So the question that motivates this entire talk, and really a lot of my work, is the question of what strategies can transform art and design for tomorrow. How can we move beyond even a 20th century paradigm of art and design and into something that is sustainable in the future? So I'm going to start with the idea of bumpiness. Bumpiness as a kind of generative friction that slows things down and makes you take note. I'm also going to take this as a moment to share with you kind of embodied practice. So in the spirit of slowing things down, I'll invite you to close your eyes with me and simply breathe. And while you're breathing, to turn your attention to your breath as it enters and exits your body. You don't need to do anything, change anything. Just pay attention to the breath. Okay, thank you. So, bumpiness. We live in a world that's increasingly sped up, that is increasingly about acceleration. Part of this acceleration and the move towards consumption is the fact that many of the things we encounter in the world are smoothed out. They have been made as easy to digest as possible. And I think this goes for many different forms, such as talks like this, but also exhibitions, songs, films, and particularly the things we interact with online. My interest in bumpiness is the idea that generative friction can slow things down and give you a moment of pause, a moment to take things in differently. It's something I've been thinking about for a very long time. And so again, if you're interested in bumpiness, I'll share a talk from the Type Directors Club from a couple of years ago, in which I particularly explore bumpiness with regards to typography, because my ideas about bumpiness really started with looking at the legibility of typefaces and reading some studies by various sociologists and psychologists that show that sometimes if you have type that is a little blurry or a little hard to read, it actually makes you comprehend the information better because it slows you down. You don't make easy mistakes. But again, if you're curious about typography and bumpiness, there's something for you. As Mark mentioned, the most recent thing that I put into the world is this book called On Letters. It's a book, a very odd book that I wrote during the pandemic in 2020. And it's written as a set of 13 letters to the late conceptual artist An Kawara. So I wrote these letters to a deceased artist who will never read them, and an artist who himself was famously taciturn. He never gave interviews, he never talked about his work. So it's already a kind of pretty funny principle. But this book, which was published by Domain Books last year and designed by David Knowles, it's a book that starts from the question of typography, but tries to kind of go beyond that. In particular, it looks at what happens if you really don't like something. What happens if something kind of triggers you in a certain way? How does it, if it creates friction, how can it make you rethink something? So I'm going to just read for a couple of short parts of this book. And, you know, so you can get a sense of the kind of the tone of it. And you can bring the lights down too, Ryan, if you want. I guess that was a kind of fake question. Wasn't really, if you want. Thank you, Ryan. Let's have a round of applause for the tech staff. Thank you. So, An Kawara was a very unique artist. He was somebody who spent over 50 years of his life on a single project that he called Today, also known as the date paintings. And these were paintings that were constructed according to a very specific set of rules. He had to start and finish them on the same day. If they weren't finished by midnight, he would destroy them. They were always painted in the kind of language and orthography of the place where he was. He traveled a lot. But these rules also have a lot of complexities to them. But as I'll read to you now, these were complexities that were lost upon me, particularly as a young man. Letter 3. Dear An, today I got up at 7:07 a.m. Listen, have you ever read Radical Candor, Kim Scott's 2017 business self-help book? It may seem cringy, but I'm a self-help junkie. Luckily, like the best of the bestsellers of the genre, Radical Candor can be summarized in a mere 4 words. Care personally, challenge directly. So let me get to the point. When I was a younger, even more foolish man, I hated your work, particularly the date paintings. They filled me with gut-level disgust. To me, a graphic designer by training, they just look so facile, so easy. Oh, Kawara just typesets today's date on a canvas in a bad font and calls it art. Any designer could do it better. Artists can be so lazy. I'm going to jump ahead. If you're curious, I'll summarize it. I talk a little bit about how I studied art and photography and my own ideas of the distinctions between art and design and some of the fictions I created for myself. But let's get here. My younger self transformed the weakness, what I saw as the weakness of design versus art, into a strength and concluded that graphic design equaled conceptual art, just with better typography. And man, how I disliked your typography. What a clumsy, ungainly, imperfect, irregular font you used. I might not have been able to identify the typeface at first glance, but I knew it was inconsistent and irregular and irrational. How many times in the early aughts did I visit Dia Beacon with friends and make fun of that room of your work? Any of my undergrad design students could pick up InDesign and make something much more resolved. Well, I'm embarrassed now by my own paltry vision. It took me almost 10 years to even understand my mistake, to grasp how completely off base I was about your work. And the error, the entire onerous kerfuffle, hinged upon my casual, improper use of one word: typography. If only I had reread one of my first tomes of the subject more carefully. Dutch type designer Fred Smyers' 1996 book Counterpunch distinguishes clearly between the words font, type, and typeface. Since we're a design room, I'm going to assume you all know that, so I'm not even going to read this section. But I'll jump ahead and I'll say, I imagine you might be tempted to ask here, is it more accurate to refer to the type, the font, or the typeface of the Today paintings? Though they might seem obvious when talking about printed works of design, the terms of typography edge towards slipperiness as they come in contact with your paintings. And here, I'll go on and answer this question. Have you guessed it already? The correct answer is none. What? A trick question? A bait and switch? No. It's simply a small yet significant semantic distinction. Typography refers to mechanically reproduced language, and so your date paintings, made meticulously by hand, each one uniquely different, do not fall under this category. My older self's error now seems so pitifully obvious. Today's letters were not created by any duplicative process, neither in metal type with letterpress, nor as film output in phototype setting, and most definitely not as the Bezier curves of digital typography. You use no stencils to draw alphabetical outlines. We are so inured to the contemporary ease of producing and distributing language in a standardized format that it's hard to conceive of analog text, particularly if the messages appear repetitive. Rather, your letters were painted individually, one by one, over long periods of time, in a manner that's far from mechanically accurate nor entirely predictable. So, I believe lettering is a more appropriate word for your work. This term indicates the arrangement of letters and words by hand, whether with a pen, brush, chisel, or other tool. Although lettering and calligraphy as a subset has been in formal dialogue with typography since the introduction of printing, it distinguished itself from the latter in labor and distribution. Ontologically, this suggests how each occurrence of lettered language represents a singular instance. Your work cannot be produced except through its performance, one character at a time. Don't get me wrong I'm not suggesting that one has more value than another, typography versus lettering, reproduction versus unique appearance. The world's far too complex for such simple dualities. But my younger self carried around the immature idea that typography and art should distill chaos into perfect precision. Your uncertain, boundary-crossing letter forms made me uncomfortable. They threatened the straw men of art and design that I had erected to protect myself and my limited expertise. I arrived to your work a non-believer. The best precondition for radical conversion. Warm regards, Prem. And if you're curious, you can read that whole chapter here. There's a PDF of it, and you can get the whole sense for it. So the second principle that I want to talk about today is generosity. Generosity is often thought about in terms of things like philanthropy, the idea of giving to people in one direction. You have more means, you have more opportunities, you have more privilege, and so you're able to bestow that upon other people. But thinking about generosity, particularly in the context of gift giving, generosity and gift giving is always reciprocal. It's never one directional. It creates community. If you read people like Marcel Mauss, the anthropologist, or Lewis Hyde in his book, The Gift, it's clear that a gift is never one way. And so I think that when thinking about art and design, we also need to think about how can a work not just be broadcast, but how can it also take something back in? How can it learn? How can it change? How does an artwork or a work of design actually become two-sided, not only one-sided in the way it communicates? So, one of my attempts in thinking about design and bringing things in the world is an experimental publication called PDF. This is an electronic book that was published continuously from late 2017 through David Reinfert's software company, ORG. And it was a book that constantly changed. Every time it was released, it had different sections, a different structure, new chapters, old chapters. It was kind of like an experimental novel that pretended to be a kind of presentation deck, but also a manifesto about artistic practice and pedagogy. And over this time period of a couple of years, it went through probably, 40 or 50 different releases. And whenever somebody bought this book for $10, they would just receive the most recent version. But that process and those many versions reflected the dialogue that it had in the world, which is to say, whenever I would show up to teach a class or give a talk, I would bring PDF with me. I would share parts of it that seemed relevant, and then I would respond to people's questions and what it brought up for them. And inevitably, those things would feed into the next version of the publication. And so it had this porosity, this changeability. It's actually the reason why I never published a printed book until On Letters, because I thought that books and artworks should change. They should invite this kind of movement. But then in 2021, I was invited by Pompeii Archaeological Park in Italy to make a new project. And for me, 2020 changed a lot of things. The pandemic was a moment of great reckoning. The moments of racial upheaval and protests throughout the US, which I witnessed from afar, from living in Germany, also radically changed how I thought about the role that design might have in the world. And so, as a response to all of these years of publishing PDF, I created a new work that I called Pompeii! I do like exclamation marks, which took all of PDF and chopped it up into pieces and made it available for free on a Google Drive, where anybody could look at these PDFs, they could comment on them, and they became goods to be freely distributed, much like this presentation itself. At the end of the talk, I will share the slides with you, and you're free to do whatever you want to do with them. Maybe they're useful frameworks for thinking about your own work. Now, Pompeii was one way to take this thing that had been a closed but porous publication and open it up to other people. The other way in which I tried to do that, also directly in the aftermath of the lockdowns of March 2020, was something called Present, with an exclamation mark. And so present came out of a release of PDF, actually a chapter that was meant to look at bumpiness, that was a hybrid publication, exhibition, performance, and all of those things at once. But the exhibition that was meant to take place never took place because of the lockdown. And in a very quick moment, together with my collaborator, Emily Smith, we pivoted the entire idea of PDF into what was meant to be a one-time live Zoom kind of event. And this was on March 29th of 2020. So again, this was meant to be a one-time thing. We thought, well, we'll take this chapter, I'll invite a whole bunch of different artists, curators, designers, and other folks, and together we can use this chapter of a book as a score, but a score to bring people together through different modes. And it was very lo-fi. It was done with a couple of laptop computers and, like a phone and some other things. It involved inviting a lot of people. But we tried it this once, and at the end of the first event, a lot of people came to us and said, we need this right now. People feel so isolated. We need to have ways to be together. And so this continued as a series over 6 weeks and then even into what we thought of as multiple seasons, where we explored different ways of being together on Zoom. To give you just a sense, just a very, very quick sense of it, I'll share just a short trailer from that very first episode that shows some of the different modes. And this link, there'll be a link afterwards, with documentation of all of these different events that we had. And of course, watching a recording of a thing that's participatory, well, just like if anybody ever watches the recording of this event, it'll be different than being here. But still, there might be things that are interesting. But I'm just going to share a kind of short clip that's pieced together from that first episode, that first gathering.
Yeah,
Oh, that is in fact you. Sorry, I was. Wait, let's just do this right. Let's try to make this full screen.
Yeah, are we together at the moment?
I'm lucky to have. Can you turn the sound up? Bumpiness suggests that there's pleasure within the irregular, in what's not already expected and familiar.
Excuse me, Prem. I heard what you were saying. You know nothing about my work.
My artwork up around, and I'm just kind of going through archives. I made some new collages.
Learn from what you did and try to use that knowledge for the next step.
As new technologies transform our bodies and senses, how are they changing our models of community? How might art, design, curating, and other creative pursuits define themselves collectively in the future?
It's one big experiment to connect performance, performativity with design and communication and put it together.
I actually started a drawing right now, sort of. I wanted to do a weird loop thing.
Thinking maybe we should talk a bit more about Butler if people they're not familiar with Octavia Butler's work.
Stand up and just kind of move your body.
It's our archives. Information about conditions on Earth over hundreds of thousands of years.
I like the running subtitle in Canopy because I like the idea of running with time.
Both because of their subject matter and because of their format.
The timeline was a response to a crisis that we were all experiencing personally and individually.
Art making often represents poetry over persuasion, difference over didactics.
With the idea that the act of writing, that there are some kind of healing vibrations in the act of writing poems.
The project demonstrated that it's sometimes possible to party and pursue utopian goals at the same time.
It's bumpy.
Very bumpy.
This is a Missy Elliott one-time exclusive. Come on, is it worth it? Let me work it. I put my thing down, flip it and reverse it. It's your primitive way your primitive plan yet? If you got a big, let me search it to find out how hard I gotta work. Yeah, it's your primitive plan yet. It's your primitive plan yet. Come on.
Who knows? Maybe one Sunday we will have Present again. But in the meantime, in the spirit of reciprocal dialogue and conversation, I wanted to bring Mark Owens up so that we can chat a little bit about design and more. Here is also, if you're curious, you can use the link to Pompeii to look at all of the sections of PDF that existed and also find all the documentation of Present there.
We're doing the Q&A in the middle.
Well, I have to admit, this Q&A in the middle thing, let's give credit where it's due. Mm-hmm. There's a bit of in 2008, when Adam Michaels and I gave the Insights talk, we did in fact insert the questions at the letter Q when we went from A to Z. So there's some precedent.
And I didn't prepare any questions ahead of time, but you've just spent a good bit showing us pages from books, multiple Zoom screens, and so many of us, I had a baby during the pandemic, so I was very isolated, and something about it created a kind of multiplicity for you. These amazing scenes of just screens, and it's unruly, but it's also just full of energy and such a refreshing kind of response to a moment of trauma. But in thinking about the lecture so far, I wanted to ask you a little bit how you think about mediation, because I think, clearly you're invested in books as a mediation, we're seeing your notes in the margin and those kinds of things, but then, you're sending us to QR codes that take us to the internet. You're reading your notes off your phone, and then, Zoom and the kind of, at the Walker, we have Teams meetings all the time. So I just wanted to, maybe it's a general thing, but how has your thinking about mediation changed? I think it's related to notions of bumpiness and smoothness.
Well, I assume this is on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of bumpiness. Let me start. Thank you for asking about mediation, because I feel like, at least when I was coming up, there was this myth that there were things that were unmediated. People thought there's a neutral way of presenting things that is somehow doesn't have a subjectivity. And, we can curate an exhibition in a really neutral way that is really objective. And the same thing went for book design or other kinds of design. And that always seemed like a fiction to me. And so, I see my role in all of these ways as a kind of mediator, an interlocutor, somebody who tries to take something that's happening in the world and bring it to other people. But when you talk about either books or Zoom meetings or websites or other things, I think about them, or even the notes on my phone, I think about them all as a kind of conversation that's happening with different levels of synchronicity. We're having a conversation right now, and it's in the same time zone, in the same place. But the author Kay Tempest, or actually the performer Kay Tempest, recently published a book called On Connection that I love. It's just a great book that redefines what art can be. And they say, in the beginning of the book, they use this line. They say, James Joyce told me, or James Joyce said this to me once. And I love that turn of phrase. The fact that a conversation, reading a book is a conversation with somebody. Just there's a great degree of asynchronicity, and then it creates something new in the world. Any of these media seems fixed, but they're not. And so for me, that moment of the kind of Zoomacene made it totally clear that a thing that was a kind of seemed like a book ought to become an event, but an event could also become an exhibition or a book, and all of them were just different ways of gathering people together.
Yeah, I think for me, what's really exciting about them is they're reflexive, right? So you're aware, with the marginalia, you're aware that reading a book is a participatory experience. That's a reflexive. And then of course, reflexivity is like the hallmark of conceptual art, in the sense that, John Baldessari makes a painting that's like, can't you see how the pieces of a painting, with the words that say, can't you see how a painting fits together? And so I think this reflexivity that allows us to see mediation as something not seamless, but like happening right here in the experience when you stop in the middle of a lecture and do a Q&A, for example. I think that's what's powerful for me, is they do have this, they're connected by this notion of reflexivity. The other thing I think as a designer that I think about a lot is so much of our work as designers is about pushing chance and error and indeterminacy away. That's why we have style guides, and that's why we have identity systems there to try to keep the rules in place so things don't go off the rails. Pantone system, that's to do all of that. And I think there's something about your practice that lets all of that indeterminacy back into the process and uses it not simply as noise, but as like a generative component of design.
Well, I think it's always, for me, a kind of push and pull. On the one hand, I am a systems-oriented person. I love kind of thinking out systems, but I also know that every system has its own failure embedded within it. So it's kind of figuring out what are the parameters that you want to start from, and then being able to be open to other things. It's like, to be a really great, my first experience of art was really from playing guitar and playing jazz. And I think there's often the misnomer or the idea that improvisation is just a thing that happens spontaneously. Improvisation happens because you've practiced and practiced and practiced and practiced and can listen in a certain way. And then at that moment, you can be really aware of things happening around you.
Yeah. Is that good for the Q&A? Maybe we should just get back to the lecture.
Yeah, that seems good for now.
That seems like an appropriate pause.
Thank you, Mark.
Sure.
So the third strategy that I want to talk about today is juxtaposition. And this is prefigured by what I showed from Vandana Shiva at the beginning of the talk. Juxtaposition could be thought about as diversity or difference, but it's the idea that a system doesn't only contain a set of things that easily resolve. It's that a system can actually involve multiple, even conflicting perspectives and viewpoints. This is something that I think is extremely important for thinking about design, particularly in how a lot of design in the 20th century was framed in very univocal ways. Even the identity of this Insight series, which is about going back to the past and pulling out all of these typographic languages, already speaks to a heterogeneity, to a difference that can be embedded within a single work. And I think this becomes even more powerful if it's really about multiple voices who might be speaking with each other. So the last project that I want to talk about is the FICRA Graphic Design Biennial in 2018. This was a project that took place in Sharjah in the United Arab Emirates, close to Dubai. And it was a project, it was the first graphic design biennial in the Middle East, North African region. And I was invited to be the artistic director of it by FICRA, who had organized it. When I was asked, I was, of course, very honored, but I also immediately said, there's no way I can possibly be the artistic director of this project in a region I don't know, and also, I can't claim to know what graphic design is in 2018. So the first move that I did was to actually invite two other co-artistic directors to be part of it, to ask FICRA for the budget and possibility to invite in the South Korean designer Na Kim and the American-born Berlin-based designer Emily Smith. And so together, as a team, we could work on this project. And that was the kind of first move of unfolding a set of polyvocal approaches and thinking about juxtaposition. So here, to jump into another document. Well, maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. Okay, well, we'll see what it does. So the exhibition was called Ministry of Graphic Design. And it was a kind of intentionally tongue-in-cheek title that thought about the fact that the UAE has all of these forward thinking and kind of future named ministries, but it said, what if graphic design, there's a ministry for not the future. That's the book by Kim Stanley Robinson that I love. But anyways, there are lots of ministries. Let's take it from there and say, we thought, well, let's propose that there could be a ministry of graphic design. What would that mean? And what could it contain? But instead of it being something that was very bureaucratic, it was quite the opposite. It was using a system to try to contain a lot of difference. And so this is the kind of org chart of it, which looks quite orderly. You know, you have this Ministry of Graphic Design with these artistic director curators, but actually the next move of it was to, as three artistic directors, Na Kim, Emily Smith, and myself, we actually invited a group of other curators to come in and organize sections of the show, exhibitions within the exhibition. And so you had these 6 different departments: the Department of Graphic Optimism, the Department of Mapping Margins, the Department of Non-Binaries, the Department of Flying Saucers, the Department of Dematerializing Language, and the Office of the Archive. And each of these different departments and the Office of the Archive were organized by different designers and curators, many of them based in the UAE or in the region, because it was clear to us that there was no way we could understand from a distance how it was to work in the context. And even if we wanted to make an exhibition that was an international show about the limits of graphic design and how graphic design could be a field for action in different ways, it required a multiplicity of perspectives. And that's also borne out in the exhibition itself and how it functioned. It was in this 5-story former bank building that we saw before, and each of the different sections of it occupied a floor, but they had very different flavors. For example, parts of it were historical, looking at graphic design in the UAE in the 70s and 80s. But then this was the Department of Graphic Optimism, curated by Alia Al-Sabi. But then there were sections like the Department of Non-Binaries, curated by Nina Payim of Common Interest. And this was looking at how graphic design could actually think about political and social action, how it could move beyond kind of binaries of art and design and occupy a blurred territory. And in many ways, particularly in a region like a place like the UAE, it had the power to do certain things that might have been harder in an art exhibition precisely because it was framed as graphic design. There was a section called the Department of Flying Saucers that invited other designers who themselves also worked curatorially into it. And so here, there's something by Public Fiction, a group from LA that then invited the artist Nicole Miller to install something. So there's a kind of like a thing and a thing and a thing and a thing. But you also had works by designers like Esen Karol, an amazing designer based in Istanbul, and series of posters that she had commissioned for a set of talks there, as well as participatory works that invited people to come in and change the space, such as Moniker's Dazzle Fungus. And also, in a kind of expanded sense, there were designers like Knot and Renner who were thinking about how to bring students from different places in the world into a shared space to contribute works that in real time responded to questions and would live in the same online space of experience and interaction. And then I'll try to play this. Again, somehow it doesn't want to go full screen today, but that's really appropriate because I've been talking about bumpiness. I may as well experience it myself. This is a video that just gives you a sense of the walkthrough of the whole building, how it felt to kind of move through the space. And also, very importantly, the fact of juxtaposition that comes from bringing people into an exhibition. I mean, it is the reason why I love alongside graphic design, exhibitions, because exhibitions are a place where people and objects and ideas come into play together and can really start to influence each other, start to change each other in that way that the Eames diagram we saw at the beginning suggests. And of course, there was some dancing because I don't think an exhibition or really any event is very happy without a little bit of music, something to make you move. Let's see. And again, here are some more QR codes. You'll be able to download these all at the end, but you can find out a little more about the exhibition and some of the great projects that were there. It was 2018. It feels like an era away because of the pandemic, but I think there's so much in that project that I'm very happy is, still available. So, well, in the spirit of juxtaposition, let me ask everyone a question. Let's see. Does this work? So, I think that, as we talked about, I think there are all these different forms that bring people together. I think it's very important to try and find a space. And sometimes that's art, sometimes it's design. It can be in the format of exhibitions, books, publications, other things. But, I have one form that's really close to my heart that I think really speaks to juxtaposition, generosity, and bumpiness in different ways. So I'm just curious, here's a raise of hands. How many of you hate karaoke? Okay, we got some people. Well, good, we've got some juxtaposition because I must admit, I believe in karaoke. I believe in it. But one of the things I think is important about karaoke is that there are so many different ways to do it. You don't have to sing to do karaoke. You can also, karaoke needs great people to support others, to cheer people on, to be part of it. Like, I think one of the misunderstandings of karaoke in my mind is A, that you have to be a good singer to do it, and B, that you have to sing. Because I think that in karaoke, as in life, as in design, as in everything else, there are many roles to be played, and they're all important. So, with that in mind, I want to invite you all to, do you all have little cards with you? Did everyone get a little card? So, I'd like to invite you to take a deep breath with me. And think about a song you'd like to hear sung. Not a song that you'd like to sing, but a song you'd like to hear sung. And if the spirit moves you, you can write it down on the card, and the cards will be collected afterwards. But we'll give everyone a moment. Is done, just hold your hand up and somebody will come around and grab them, or maybe pass them all to the aisle if you can, whoever's closest to the aisle. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay. And while we're collecting the last of them, well, in the spirit of modeling, modeling the behaviors that I'm encouraging, perhaps modeling insanity too, I'm gonna start us out. And hopefully you all, whether you love or you hate karaoke, you can at least give me a little bit of courage from the audience, because I do believe in karaoke and never doing the same song twice, or at least trying new things. So this one's a new one for me, but it feels like in Minneapolis, the right one to try. So let's see how this goes. And there's another mic over there too. I'll gladly pass it around if anybody wants to join, but let's try it out. All right, can we drop the lights? Drop the lights a little bit. Is this playing? Dearly beloved, we are gathered here to get through this thing called life. Electric word, life. It means forever, and that's a mighty long time. But I'm here to tell you, there's something else. The afterworld. A world of never-ending happiness. You can always see the sun, day or night. So when you call up that shrink in Beverly Hills, you know the one. Doctor, everything will be all right. Instead of asking how much of your time is left, ask him how much of your mind, babe. Because in this life, things are much harder than the afterworld. This life, you're right. And if the elevator tries to break down, go crazy. Please don't lie. The world you're living in. Take a look around. At least you got friends. I call my old lady for a friendly word. She picked up the phone, dropped it on the floor. Is all I heard. I'm not gonna let the elevator break us down. No, let's go crazy. Let's get nuts. Look further than that'll put us in the truck. Let's go. I guess we're all excited. We're all excited, but we don't know why. Maybe it's 'cause we're all gonna die. But when we do, what's it all for? Better live now before the grim reaper comes knocking on your door. Let's go. I ain't gonna let the elevator break us down. Oh no, let's go. Let's get nuts. Let's look up for the birth of an entity that'll put us in the trust. Let's go. Come on, baby. Let's get nuts. Instrumental. Let's just read out. INSTRUMENTAL. I'm not gonna let the elevator break us down. No, let's go. Crazy. Let's go. Doctor, everything will be alright. Makes everything go wrong. Pills and thrills and daffodils. Come on, act up, children. Please come. Come. INSTRU. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for bearing with that. Especially those of you who hate karaoke. I appreciate you very much in this moment. Okay. Ooh. Okay, so, well, as I was saying before, there are 3 strategies that I think we should be thinking about in making art, in making design, from now and going into the future. Bumpiness, the idea that generative friction, the friction that art and design can create, slow us down and can make us take notice of what's around us. Generosity, the ways in which art and design can work reciprocally, the ways that they can invite other people in and become a dialogue, not only a monologue. And juxtaposition, the idea that diversity and polyvocality can make for more sustainable, more meaningful works of art and design and the world. And that karaoke, even if you don't love it, it can still be a fun way to bring people together. So, with those things in mind, I want to give everybody a moment to reflect on some of the ideas that are here. Oh, sorry, I should have said, this is also the slide where you can download this all these slides, and they have links to things too. And feel free to use, share, remix, however you feel is appropriate. For me, the most important thing is that this asynchronous conversation that has been going for thousands of years continues in one way or another. Now, I want to give everybody a moment to digest a little bit this experience, so I'm going to ask you to take a moment, invite you to use the card that you have, and maybe think about for a moment, what seeds are you carrying with you from today, and where they might take root. This is just for you. You don't have to hand this to us unless you feel like it. It's something that is for your own reflection. So I'll give us a moment to use that moment and think about it. Okay, so, which mic? So hopefully that gave you all a moment to kind of reflect for yourself, and maybe it's something that is useful now, maybe it's something that you take and you look back at in a week or a month or a year and see what has come of the ideas or the things that come from this encounter. So this is here, if you're curious, this is a link to a newsletter that is sent out very infrequently, but if you want to think about the Department of Transformation and continue to think with us in this community, you know where to find me. So with that in mind, I want to give us a moment for maybe there are some reflections that come up from thinking about the talk, from having a moment to write. It can be questions, it can just be impressions, things that land with you, or things that are confusing to you. I'd love to hear some questions or comments from people if you feel comfortable. So we'll have the mic around, and maybe, thank you, we can pass it around if people want to ask questions. I'll kind of come off the stage too, so that I'm not right in front of you. Is there anybody? Yeah, so. Sure. No. Yes and no. Oh. Hello, hello.
Your magic.
It's a great question. The question, can you repeat it?
Yes, so the question was very profound. I'm sorry you missed it. It was, how is karaoke like jazz when you have the lyrics before you on the screen? You know, the distinction and what they have in common.
I think it's a good question. I mean, for me, karaoke is a useful model for a lot of things because, you know, on the one hand, there is a starting point, which is a song that an artist or somebody has written, and you do, as you said, have the lyrics, but there's still something in the performance of it that's very different. No two karaoke performances will be the same. I probably will never do Let's Go Crazy again, but I think that, and no two people will do it. So I think it's much more like, in kind of conceptual art thinking, like a performance score. It's a thing that offers you a framework from which to start, but its expression is very, very different. And to me, what's interesting and important about karaoke, maybe as opposed to really being a professional jazz musician or something else, is the vulnerability that it offers up. Like, you know, you don't have to be a great singer, I don't think, to do karaoke. You just have to really want to do it and also have the support of other people who are enthusiastic about it. I think it's more about enthusiasm than it is talent. But I don't know. I mean, I keep looking at you because I know that I did notice, I don't want to call anybody out, but did anybody of the people who hate karaoke, just, you know, I'm just curious, did that like soften it at all for you or just make you hate karaoke more? I mean, both are fine. Hatred, I prefer strong emotions. Like hate and love, I prefer to like middling in betweens. But thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay.
Enthusiasm versus talent.
Other questions, comments, even just... Oh, no, don't.
This is my first time on a mic. Thinking about how you approach a new project now in your vast experience in design and creativity, could you just describe maybe what your first 3 steps would be when you approach a new design project?
I was going to be glib and say listen, listen, listen. But okay, let's start with, I think listen is the first thing. I think when I start a project, I try to think about the context and I try to ask as many questions as I can of either the commissioner or the community that it's in or the context in which it's taking place and really reflect on those. The second thing that I've started to do, maybe this is the second and the third things that I've started to do in the last couple of years, is particularly if it's a context where there are multiple people who are all working on something together, which is pretty much any design project, I tend to ask everybody at the beginning to share what they want from the project, what their desires are, and to really kind of get those out in the room, and also to ask them what their fears are. What are they concerned about? I tend to do this at the beginning because sometimes it allows people to be more upfront about what's at stake for them, and it helps people, in my experience, to then at least kind of register where everyone is in a more honest and vulnerable way. There's a question over there, maybe? Can't see it though.
This might not be very like answerable, and it might be kind of a weird question, but how did you begin to associate a never-ending conversation with books and texts that you read? Like, how did you kind of get the idea that, you know, it's a conversation that's just asynchronous?
It's a great question. It was actually not that long ago. It was during the pandemic when I was writing this piece called Pompeii that I also showed for a moment. And I was trying to kind of understand my own production from things like conversations with people and talks and teaching, these things that feel more ephemeral, to things that took a more published form, like, essays, books, and things, and exhibitions. And I started to realize that it wasn't a kind of spectrum of things that were temporary, like a conversation you have with somebody feels like it disappears. It's never recorded. Well, maybe it is. But I started to realize that those conversations were very similar to things like books or exhibitions, because when you put those into the world, they then start another conversation. They start to, like, the meaningful thing for me is never, in making exhibitions, is never just making the exhibition and leaving. It's to see what happens. How do people respond to it? How does it change? And so that's really the conversation it starts going forward. Okay, we have a question over there, I think, or a comment. Okay. Oh, sorry. Okay.
This was really interesting, so thank you. Very different than what we typically hear and experience. I couldn't help but thinking about these 3 strategies of juxtaposition, generosity, and bumpiness, and what an amazing elixir it could be for conversations that are had in America right now. What if we added generosity to those conversations? What if we thought about the juxtapositions, not the ones we always think are there, ones we hadn't thought about before? And how about bumpiness, slowing it down a little bit? I think it could be amazing. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Are there other, what?
Thank you, Prem. Oh, there's a note.
Is it my turn?
Okay. Yeah, sure, go for it.
So I don't know if this is not a question, it's more like a reflection, but maybe just in the spirit of nonlinear conversation or endless conversation, I'm going to end karaoke. This is sort of like me trying to perform something here. I wonder how many will recognize this. So it goes like this. I went to see Krishnamurthy speak, and he was saying that you can't hear a lecture when you take notes. The lady to my right was taking notes. The guy to her right says to her, "Can't you hear what he's saying? You're not supposed to take notes." She looks at her notes and says, "I know, I have it right here in my notes."
Thank you. I appreciate that as a reflection. But did I say you shouldn't take notes? Because I take obsessive notes because my memory is just like a Swiss cheese. Okay, there you go. See, thank you. I think you wanted to say.
Yeah, maybe the last one. So, since I've known you, you have been drawn to kerfuffle. Yeah, I just learned it from your lecture. So look it up. I did, right? It's easy. Kerfuffle, no? You look puzzled. Okay.
I did say onerous kerfuffle.
Yeah. So what? So I'm curious about, successes as much as the failures. So were there an instant that it went wrong, and you were like, you know what? I should have done in the ordinary way.
I mean, it's a great question because things always go wrong. I mean, I could talk about 100 things that went wrong during any of those projects, during Ministry of Graphic Design, during Front, the exhibition I just did, during making the Encore book. But to me, I don't think it's about, I guess I try not to think about when things go wrong as a failure of me having not done something in a quote ordinary way, I try to take them as learning experiences. I mean, that's the line by I can't remember who takes credit for it originally, but I never win. I mean, I never lose. I only learn. I either win. Sorry, I'll get it right the third time. I get it right. You know, it's Nelson Mandela, and it's I either win or I learn. So, yeah. So, is there one? There's one more back here.
I'm curious if any of the other ministries in UAE tried to shut down your ministry.
Well, the interesting thing is that, as I understand it, apparently people at the UAE then talked to the Fikra who organized it, and were actually talking about having a Ministry of Graphic Design. So it's kind of like a parafiction. It's, again, I mentioned Kim Stanley Robinson's Ministry for the Future, which is one of my favorite books of the last years, because I think it's like a Trojan horse. It's like a perfect artwork in the sense that it is a really highly readable novel about climate crisis that, because it's so well written and kind of like you can read it, it becomes President Obama's best book of 2020 and inspires all of these companies that start up in its wake. So it's just a thing that sometimes when you make things, calling them a fiction, maybe even like the Department of Transformation, maybe they become a reality someday. So, okay, with that in mind, I know that we're up against time, but you know, we did get some great suggestions for karaoke. So I thought maybe we'd just do one more song, and let's just, you know, let's go full on. You know, if y'all want to like get out and have a drink, that's also totally fine. I'm not going to hold you from it, but let's try one more, and we're going to do it classic YouTube karaoke style. Let's see if I can just find this. Okay. Can we drop the lights a little bit? All right. Please join in if you want. Do, do, do. Do, 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 do. We're talking away. Is there anybody who wants to join me? I don't know what I'm to say. I'll say it anyway. Today's another day.
Shining away. I'll be coming for your love. Okay. Take on me. Take on me. Take me on. Take on me. All.
Stumbling
away, slowly learning that life is okay. Say after me, it's no better than take the sorry. Take
on me.
Take on me. Take on me. Oh, take on me. Oh, be gone.
One more mic? Where's another mic? I see some folks who want to sing.
I don't know if this one's on.
Is that one on?
It's on.
Oh, good, good. We got a couple mics. That's cool. for 10 minutes. Take on me. Take on me. Take. Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. And let's turn this off before it keeps going. Let's hold Q and quit that. Thank you again, everyone. It's great to see you all. And hopefully I'll see some of you out there. And have a great evening.